I asked on your subreddit, which is an excellent subreddit. Shout out to the Destiny subreddit. So much, at least for that particular post. What I really loved is when I asked for questions for you, they were like, holy shit, there's adults in the room, let's all behave.
Yeah.
Like, nobody say incest. I was like, what? What's going on here? But actually, the questions that rose to the top were really good. So somebody said that Destiny was, speaking of your journey, was a conservative in his early teens. Then he became a libertarian. Then he became a left-wing social justice warrior. Then he flirted with socialism. And now he is a social democrat, liberal. I've also heard you refer to yourself as a far left person. So to the degree there's truth to that journey, can you take me through your evolution through the landscape of political ideologies that you went through?
So my dad comes from Kentucky, and my mom is a Cuban immigrant. Cubans are notorious for being very conservative in the United States for historical reasons and for other reasons. But my upbringing was a very Republican one. I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Michael Savage, on the radio, Billy Cunningham. I think Sean Hannity a little bit later on. That was like my whole upbringing politically. I remember I'd written like articles for the school journal, like in favor of defending the war in Iraq and, defending Bush from all the criticism, et cetera. So that was my upbringing. I think once I hit high school, college, I had my edgy, like libertarian-esque high school phase of like reading Ayn Rand, of figuring out that like, oh my God, nothing in life matters except for class and money. That's actually the answer to everything. And I got to college. I became a Ron Paul fan, very big Ron Paul fan. And then from there, I kind of work, do life happens. At the kind of the lowest point of my life in terms of where I'm working, financially, everything is like kind of in ruin in my life. There's just a whole bunch of dumb stuff that's happened. Probably my most conservative point. I don't know what it is about like being poor and thinking like you can work your way out of it, you can do whatever. It's just my upbringing is always just like if you're not having financial success, just work. Mm-hmm. And then I got into streaming, very, very lucky break. Everything just lined up at the right time. And then as I've progressed through streaming, I would say through the years, I've gradually fallen more and more to the left, especially once my kid turned 4, 5, 6 years old. And I started to see like how much different his life was just because of the financial opportunities that I was able to provide for him through no merit of his own. And that started to radically change how I viewed the world in a lot of ways.
So actually, let's like linger on that low point. You worked at McDonald's, you worked at a casino. You did carpet cleaning. What was the lowest point?
Definitely the carpet cleaning.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why was it the lowest point? That's when you were just flirting with starting streaming?
My whole life has been a series of lucky breaks, really, truly. I grew up playing a lot of video games, but back in my day, our day, you had to read. There was a lot of text on the screen.
Back in my day, we used to play.
They didn't all talk to you. Yeah, because nowadays everything's voice acted, but back then you had to read a lot. I was a really good reader and a really good vocabulary.
Yeah, I've heard you actually say that. What games are we talking about? What do you mean there's reading? You're talking about like RPGs?
Yeah, JRPGs. So like Final Fantasy games, Phantasy Stars, like all of these, like any RPG that would have been on the SNES, Sega, PlayStation. These are the things
Let's pause on that.
Okay.
I just talked to Todd Howard, who's of the Elder Scrolls fame and the Fallout fame and beyond. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on Elder Scrolls? Why is Skyrim the greatest RPG of all time?
Man, I really don't like Skyrim or Fallout.
You
or those
don't
types
love
of
it?
Games.
Oh, really?
No, not at all.
Why do you hate Skyrim?
Yeah, so I really like characters and like compelling stories and narratives around those characters, and I like to see them kind of like grow and change, kind of like a movie or a story. So in your like Final Fantasy games, you've got characters. There are a lot of like classical tropes of like a character starts off kind of like edgy, angsty, all on their own. They develop relationships, friendships. They realize that the life is more about themselves, and they do that. And I like that growth. That's kind of what you see in all of those old role-playing games. I didn't like the open world ones as much because your main character is just like a blank slate, never talks. It's for you to like project onto, but there's not the same like linear narrative of like growth for the character.
Oh, that's fascinating. There's an actual story arc to the character that's more crafted in a beautiful way by the designers of the game. Yeah.
I don't think one is better or worse. It's just I tend towards like I want to hear a compelling story around like a set of characters that like grow and change as the game.
Oh, that's beautifully put then. Yeah, I just really loved being able to leave the town. You go outside the town and you look outside its nature, and the world of possibilities is before you. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Mm-hmm. I mean, that immensity of just being lost in the world was really immersive for me. But yeah, you're right. Whatever attracts you about a world. So you were just starting to play video games. You go out play the video games. That's one of your lucky breaks.
There's just like a lot of random skills you pick up depending on the type of game you play. I played a lot of text-based games on the computer, so I was a very fast typer. I'm still a very fast typer. Read a lot, learned weird kind of math stuff for some of the calculations, some of the games. I think I'm pretty good at getting information, figuring stuff out, learning patterns, all of that. And then that plus the reading and everything from the games meant that I don't want to say I excelled in school because my grades were pretty bad, but I was in like all honors, all AP classes or whatever. A lot of dual enrollment, a lot of AP credit going into college. So I did pretty well in school, probably better than I should have, but it was because I had the game stuff that was like really powering a lot of my brain there while I was trying to sleep through class.
So you're able to soak in information, integrate it, quickly take notes.
Generally, I think I'm pretty good at that, yeah.
What you do this a lot when you stream, you're typing stuff. Is there a system in that note taking? And what do you use for note taking? Does it matter?
I use a notepad.
Like notepad, the original notepad?
Yep, notepad.exe, not the ++, not...
Is there genius to the madness behind that, or you just don't give a shit?
No, I mean, like, it's going to depend on the style of conversation. If I'm with somebody that is very meticulously organized their thoughts, and they're find a better word here for rambler, you can edit that in, better word for rambler, somebody that talks a lot, I'll start, like, taking notes, bullet points, like this, because there's a style of conversation where I say 7 or 8 different things, and then when you go to respond to everything I said, I cut you off immediately and we argue that point. Yeah. But if somebody's going to do that, you're just like, hold on, you just said these 8 things, I'm going to respond to every single one. I've written them all down, and then you can go. If you want to go point by point, we can, but you just said all this and I wrote it down, so now we're going to go.
So what are you actually writing down? Like a couple of words per point they left?
Honestly, like there are very few unique conversations in politics. Like a lot of them are kind of retreading old ground. So if we're having a debate on abortion, somebody might say like, oh, well, I believe this thing about viability and I believe this thing about, when they're a fetus versus a human. And I'll just write down like those points so that when I go to respond, I kind of have like note cards, like a guiding thing there to keep me centered on my response.
Political discourse is a kind of tree you're walking down. I got it. And you're like taking...
Just to keep my focus guided. So I'm not like running off on a weird tangent or responding to something I didn't say or something. Yeah.
What about like doing research? Is there a system to your note taking? Because mentally you seem to be one of the most organized people I've listened to. So is it in your mind, or is there a system that's on paper?
A little of both. I feel like the human mind is a beautiful thing if you have interest in an area. So what I'll tell people is, let's say there's like a totally new topic that I'm researching. I don't know anything. And I'll do a couple of these on stream. I think they're boring, but people watch it. I might open a Wikipedia article and I'll read, and I hit something I don't know. And then I open the next Wikipedia article and I'll read and then I might have like 7 tabs open, and I'll read and I'll read and I'll read. And I'll read a ton of stuff, maybe for an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours of stuff. And then by the end, someone in chat will ask me like, do you even remember like this particular thing? And I'll say, not really. No, not too much. But what happens is as long as you've seen it once, what'll happen is like the next day or the day after, we'll read something else and we're like, oh, I remember that thing from this thing. I remember like vaguely that. And then if you see it like a third time, you're like, oh, this makes sense, because especially when it comes to, here's like a little trick on stuff. If you're ever reading any news and there's a place that pops up, always look at it on a map, because so much of history is like on a map. It's so important to like know the geography. It makes things make so much more sense. But yeah, once I start to see stuff over and over again, just because I've like read it a few times, stuff will start to kind of connect in my mind, and like, oh yeah, well, this makes sense. Of course, these people believe this. It's because of this. Or of course, like this happened here. It's because, that happened there. So yeah, it's a lot of that. If there's like a topic that I'm doing specific research for, so like vaccine related stuff is a big one. The Ukrainian-Russian conflict is a big one. That I'll break out a note. I'll probably get like a Google Doc, and I'll just start like writing like an outline of kind of the rough points of everything, just to organize my thoughts around different topics. Yeah.